So as you know, February is Black History Month. And the idea of Black History Month is to create a month-long awareness of the contributions African Americans have made to our country. Now, I don't know how many of you have ever heard of Carter Woodson, but he is known as the father of Black history. And he was the second person to earn a PhD at Harvard University. And in 1926, he recognized that American history did not reflect the contributions of African Americans. Few of us know the entire contributions. We all know about the Civil War, but how many of us know and learn every year what other people have contributed? He was an author, he was a historian, and he recognized that the American education system did not create a way for young African Americans to feel proud of their heritage, to know how the people in their own culture had contributed to society. For example, how many of you know who Rosetta Tharpe is? Right, so Rosetta Tharpe was truly the queen of rock and roll. If you've never heard her music, she was a phenomenal guitarist, singer. She played in high heels and long dresses, carried that guitar, and managed to make music like nobody else. You should look her up. And how many people ever heard of Azzie Taylor Morton, who was the first treasurer of the United States of America, who was African American under President Carter? She held an office that no one else had. How many people knew that? It's through our learning and understanding that we improve our understanding of the racial divide, of how we have thought of ourselves as separate from each other in that one aspect. And as my way of honoring Black History Month, I thought it would be important to share one of my favorite spiritual concepts that I've learned along the way. And it's a Zulu philosophy called Ubuntu. Ubuntu, I believe, is the better way to say it. And it's the South African philosophy that translates to the Spirit of Oneness. And it's wonderful to learn about, and I'm going to take you on a little journey with me today. So this first slide I'm going to have Duncan put up is the Zulu proverb for Ubuntu. And it's 3 lines. It says, I am a person through other people. My humanity is tied to yours. And the main line is, I am because you are. The main message here is, I am because you are. And I'm going to explain that. So in this concept, the perception and the belief is that we exist because of one another and for one another, and that we can only grow and progress when those around us are growing and progressing. We cannot live in our isolated bubbles on our little islands and only work and live for ourselves. We must think of the world around us in order to build that oneness and that community thinking. It is the spirit of oneness, that existence that we are dependent upon one another, that we need one another in order to be who we are best. We cannot live alone, exist alone, and not actually make contributions, rather, to the world. We need each other. Who would we serve? Who would we communicate with? How would we help those who didn't have what we did? How do we recognize that whatever we're building should be shared with others in order to keep that energy flowing and help those who can't always help themselves? Archbishop Desmond Tutu explained it this way, And I have a slide for that, Duncan. Bringing people together is what I call Ubuntu, which means I am because we are. Far too often, people think of themselves as just individuals separated from one another, whereas you are connected and what you do affects the whole world. When you do well, it spreads out for the whole of humanity. Now, in the spirit of oneness, the focus is on how we become our best self and ensure that everyone else along the way becomes their best self. A simple little reminder of that is Elliot teaching about the workshop that he's having. He's got a passion, he has a passion for music, and he's going to share that and allow other people to develop the passion, if that is theirs to develop. The concept is that we treat each other as equals and that we become aware of the impact we have on each other. And more importantly, that we make choices in that direction, in the direction of oneness. So when you're home and when you're by yourself or when you're with your family and you are thinking negative thoughts about the rest of the world or what people do, that is dividing us. That is not helping us build our oneness. One of the best examples of somebody who lived the spirit of oneness was Nelson Mandela. I know you all know who he is, but maybe you don't know that his spirit, the spirit of oneness he was able to create to eliminate segregation, to lead people through the apartheid, was all done from prison. He started that mission, but he was imprisoned for his efforts to break down barriers between people, and he didn't let it stop him. He continued from prison for 27 years to teach and preach the spirit of oneness and to create fairness and equality for all people. And what's most important and most respectful from my seat is that he never targeted the people who tried to suppress him. He never said anything unkind. He never tried to suppress their actions. He simply stayed focused on his mission. What was he here to do? I want to show you Nelson Mandela said Ubuntu does not mean that people should not enrich themselves. So we don't want to misunderstand that. It's not that you shouldn't get better, that your life shouldn't be improved. But what it says is you should ask yourself this question: are you going to enrich yourself in order to enable the community around you to improve? Or are you only enriching yourself? Now, we're an example of that, right? We're all participating in enriching our spiritual community. That is one way we can bring that oneness together. But Bishop Desmond Tutu explained Nelson Mandela's reference to community this way. He said, "You are rich so that you can make up for what is lacking in others. You are powerful so you can help the weak as a mother or father will help their children." This was God's dream. The bishop also explains that a person with Ubuntu is open and available to other people, is affirming of other people, doesn't feel threatened that others are able and good, for he or she has a proper self-assurance that comes from knowing that he or she belongs to the greater whole and is diminished when others are humiliated or diminished, tortured, or oppressed. The two things I want you to hear from this is that if we diminish each other and we humiliate each other, we are humiliating and diminishing ourselves because we are one. And the second thing is that enriching our lives must always include opportunities for others to become enriched by what we do, because we're all part of the same community. Regardless of our circumstances, regardless of the dollars we have, we all have something to give, some way of giving, some way of raising consciousness. The spirit of Ubuntu, the spirit of oneness, can be seen in so many other things that have happened in our world. For example, Haiti emerging as the first independent black nation back in 1804. That spirit of oneness drove them forward. Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, all liberating. That's the spirit of oneness, becoming one together. But it also exists even in our own United Nations by how they're trying to work together to eliminate poverty, and the fact that there are global goals designed to bring us all together. And let's not forget about Unity's message of one power and one presence. However, our understanding of one humanity only works when our actions are consistent in bringing oneness, in doing what's good for all, not just ourselves. So we can say it on Sundays, but if our actions speak otherwise, like rushing up in the front of line because you want to get there first, like driving and cutting people off on the road because you want to get there first, like seeing your neighbor and running back in for fear they may want to talk. Don't act like you've never done it. We have all done it. We have all done it. It's the neighbor, right? But all of us have to share our knowledge, our time, our goods, our whatever we are blessed with. Not only will it make you feel good, but it'll be good for the world. That's the thing we have to remember. And when I think about this concept, I keep thinking about our new location. Okay, how many people will drive to that location and say, I don't know, this isn't South Tampa? Okay? And how many people will go there and say, wow, I wonder if we could bring the community around us in here. What could we do in this community to bring people to church? How could we invite them to a picnic or get them to know us so we can be good neighbors? So we can find out what the needs of the community are around us and not be elitists that think that we're too good for the rest of people. Will we grow our spiritual community by only bringing in like-minded people? I don't think so. So our desire to always find people like us isn't the right thing. It's to find people who may find a path to unity or through unity. And it's this concept of us becoming more aware of being one. And I have a great story that exemplifies this that I want to read to you. At the Festival of Peace in Florianópolis, South Brazil, journalist and philosopher Leah Diskin related a beautiful and touching story of a tribe in Africa she referred to as Ubuntu. She explained how an anthropologist had been studying the habits and customs of this tribe, and when he finished his work, he had to wait for transportation that would take him to the airport to go home. Since he had always been surrounded by the children of the tribe, he thought it might be fun to play a game with them to pass the time until he left. Well, he had purchased a lot of candy and sweets what he knew the children would like, and he brought them from the city, and he put them all in one basket and put a beautiful ribbon on them, and he placed the basket under a solitary tree, and he called the kids together. And he drew a line around the ground and explained that they should wait behind the line for his signal. He also told them that once he said go, they should rush over to the basket. And he said the first to arrive there would win all the candies. When he said go, they all unexpectedly held each other's hands and ran off towards the tree as a group. When they got there, they shared the candy with each other and happily ate it. The anthropologist was very surprised and asked them why they had all gone together, especially since he had said that the first one there would win everything. And that's when the meaning of Ubuntu became clear. A young girl replied, "But how can one of us be happy if all of the others are sad?" You gotta love kids. The anthropologist was dumbfounded. For months and months he had been studying the tribe, and yet it was only in his final moments there that he really understood the true essence of their oneness with one another. Now, we often talk about our oneness with God as our inner journey. But when we look at this concept of oneness from the Zulu philosophy, we have to understand that it's more about our oneness with each other and being of God. It's been nearly 100 years now since Carter Woodson established the importance of integrating Black history and creating oneness in society. And while I think we still have a lot of work to do, we have come a long way. And we can continue on this path if we all do our part. I want to share our takeaways with you for today, which should be in your bulletin as well. Sustaining the spirit of oneness, Ubuntu, requires a commitment to the following. Stop thinking of yourself as a separate human being. Practice awareness of the world around you and think community. Number 2, don't allow differences to define your relationships. Embrace the commonalities and you will eventually stop seeing flaws. Number 3, remember that what you do impacts the world. Take actions that unite people and create peace. And our affirmation is, I am because we are. And we have a quote today, which I didn't put in here. Thank you. And it's from Maya Angelou. Won't it be wonderful when Black history and Native American history and Jewish history and all of the U.S. history is taught from one book? Isn't that a great thought? All right, let's pause for a moment if we can. And I just want you to reflect upon the spirit of oneness. Let's ask ourselves, what can we do to improve this concept of needing one another, wanting to be part of this joint effort together in order to share and exist as one self? Imagine what the world can achieve with one self, one humanity. We affirm our ability to become one in a much bigger and better way through centering ourselves on the true meaning of being of God. Amen.